Hey guys, I am so glad you are here with me today. So, what I want to share with you today is all of the different ways that I am able to save money and travel each year. I never even had a passport for myself until I was about 30 years old, and this year I turned 35. So, for the past 5 years, I have been able to have the opportunity to travel different countries: Greece, Paris, London, Mexico, Canada. And, a question that I get asked sometimes is how I'm able to travel, how I'm able to save. What are the habits that I've had to incorporate in my life, especially, living here in New York City is obviously not the cheapest place to live. And so today I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you what it is I'm able to do in order to travel every year. So there's going to be three different things that I talk about. I'm going to talk about saving prior, like what are the habits that I have to do in order to have the funds to travel. And then I'm going to talk about the strategies that I use as part of the planning of the travel. And then I'm going to talk about how I actually save once I've arrived at the destination. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are the habits that I do in my everyday life in order to be able to save up to be able to travel. And one of the things that I try to share with everyone that's in my life is how important it is to incorporate this habit of packing your lunch every day. Now, I know it's an annoying habit and it's really hard if you are so used to buying your lunch every day, but this is so important if you're in a major city. So, for example, if I go out to lunch every day and I'm not packing my lunch, then I'm going to be spending anywhere between $10 and $15 a day just on like a salad to eat. So if you think about that, even just having to buy a $10 lunch, that's $50. And then if you're married or you have a significant other and that person is spending $10 a day on lunch, well, now you're looking at $100 a week that you two are spending just on lunch. And so one of the easiest things that you can start to do is at the beginning of the week, food prep and get your lunches packed so that you're not spending so much money throughout the week buying lunch out. And the same honestly goes for dinner time. I mean, I love to go out to eat, but once again, I live in New York City, and so the premium that it's not just the premium that you're paying here, but the premium anywhere. I tend to save, or I tend to wait to go out to eat. I try to, as much as possible, wait till it's a special occasion, or, maybe it's once a week on a Friday or a Saturday. But, you have to stop and think, if you've started to create this habit of ordering seamless every night or going out to eat, or again, eating for convenience, that's really going to add up quickly. I said for lunch it's usually like $10 to $15. If you're spending 15, 20, or spending 100 if you go out, to a nice fancy dinner, that's really going to add up. So if you can learn to start packing your lunch and preparing dinner at home instead of going out to eat, that's going to be, major ways. Another way that you can really start to save is to cut back on, your car services and your Ubers, and start to take, if you're in a city, take mass transit. Like if you use an unlimited card, then it's gonna start saving up, much more than just hopping in a taxi every time you go out and about. And then another way that you can start to prepare to save for the trip is all of this money that you have now begun to save on your lunches and your dinners, taking the mass transit. You can actually take that money and you can move it over to a separate savings account that you don't even see and that you don't have access to. And you can talk to your local bank or do some research on this. And like I said, even if it's $10, $20, $50 here and there, slowly but surely you're going to see that separate savings account add up, and once the year has come and gone, you'll be able to see just how much money you were able to save. And you might even forget, if you don't allow yourself to have access to it, how much you were able to save throughout the year. The other thing I want to talk about is, I want you to start to think about all the little things that you buy that you might not think are that expensive, or if it's a couple dollars here and there. If you're really trying to start to save a lot of money, start being more cognizant of your little purchases. Even spending $3 to $5 on cards, for different holidays or different occasions. If you think about birthdays and Valentine's Day and Christmas and all these holidays, and Valentine's Day, we might have this pressure to buy candy and chocolates and stuffed animals. Think about all those little things that add up throughout the year that kind of just ends up being stuff, and think about how much that could add up to helping you travel and book your next vacation. All right, so those are a few of the habits. Now I want to go into the planning section of the trip. So when you think about planning for a trip, one of the things that I usually do to plan for a trip is I start to play around with when I'm going to travel. There are different studies that show if you have flexibility and you can leave on a Tuesday or a Wednesday rather than traveling on a Friday or traveling on a Sunday, you can actually save a ton of money by having that flexibility of traveling. And you also want to try to travel during off-peak seasons. I know if you have children or a family and you have to work around when the kids have break and stuff, that can get a little difficult. But if you do have that flexibility and you're single or you don't have kids yet and you have the flexibility at work, play around with those dates. A lot of the times I'll travel from a Tuesday to the following Wednesday, and I try to avoid those heavier price days, which they say sometimes are like the Sunday or a Friday. Okay. So the other suggestion I have that I also incorporate is when I go to plan a vacation, I shop around for different airport prices. So again, since I'm in New York City, I have Newark Airport in New Jersey, and then I have JFK, LaGuardia, and so I tend to shop around and do price points on the different airports to see if I'm able to save that way. Another thing that I do is I'm able to take my points that I use from using my credit cards. So I will use my credit cards for everyday purchases that I normally would use cash, such as my grocery shopping, and I have a credit card that gives me points for doing those purchases. And I wait until my points add up, and I've actually been able to book flights with those points. The last thing I want to talk about with you is how I'm actually able to save money once I've arrived at my destination. So one of the things is, again, like I talked about before, is one of the habits, how I tend to take mass transportation. I also try to take mass transportation once I have arrived in my location. So for example, last time I was in Paris, instead of hopping in a car or getting a private car or a cab, I ended up taking the Paris Metro, and that was right there able to save me like $50. And so that can be a huge way, if you feel safe and you feel comfortable. I'm so used to using the mass transportation here in New York City that the Metro was not actually that hard to figure out. And so again, like I said, if you feel comfortable, that can be a major way that you can save once you're there. Another thing that I like to do when I am traveling is I bring a backpack, right? Because what happens is when you're out and about and you're in a major tourist section of the city, if you are traveling, then the like the food and the drinks and everything in that heavy populated area are going to be much more expensive. So, for example, when I have friends and family come and visit here in the city, I won't expect them to, pay for dinner or lunch in like a Times Square area or Bryant Park or those heavy tourist areas, because I know that the prices to eat and drink in those areas is going to be much more expensive. And so the other thing that I do is I tend to carry a backpack, and so I will put a water bottle in there so that I'm not like constantly grabbing water bottles when I'm out and spending money on water when I know I can just have my water with me and have my snacks. One of the other things that I also do when I travel is I try to look for a hotel that has a microwave and a refrigerator, and that way I can even go to the store. When we were in Greece, we ended up going to the store and we ended up kind of stocking our refrigerator with some things that we just wanted to have on hand. Milk, to have with cereal, so we weren't eating breakfast every single morning at a restaurant. We were able to keep drinks in there, some wine, and that also helped, if we ended up going out to eat one of the nights that we were there, we could put the leftovers in there and use it for a second meal. And so again, it's just these small habits that can really add up. All right, so there you have it. We have talked about creating the habits and thinking about how we can save before we go on our trip. And then we talked about how I'm going to save on the planning by shopping around and looking at different price points for each of the airports that I want to use. And lastly, I talked about how we're going to save once we get there. If you have any other ideas that you would like to share, please put them in the comments below. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Facebook and subscribe to my channel. And I hope to see you at my next video. Bye, all my love.